It is October 28, 2002, and up until this day, I still remember that 17-year-old version of me. I got on the bus from Los Angeles, California, headed down to San Diego, California, pull up to the depot, that is the United States Marine Corps depot, got off the bus, and next thing you know, I'm in a whole different world that I never been into. And I'm gonna tell you a little bit of story about what I learned, some of the values that I learned while serving in the United States Marine Corps, and whether I recommend people to join the military or not. So stay tuned for that. Hey, welcome back everyone. So thank you so much for once again allowing me to give you a little bit of values and a little bit of history today in this video of what I learned, some of the values that I learned while serving in the military. My name is Marcelino and I reside here in the Inland Empire in the state of California, and I'm a local realtor out here in the area. And the purpose of this channel is simply to give you some value. It's to give you some value based on some of the life lessons that I have learned, some of the values that I have come across, some of the people, the great individuals that I have learned from. And so my sole purpose in life is just to pay it forward, to pay it back to the community by being of service. And so that is the purpose of this video. So with that aside, I'm gonna talk to you real quick of some of the values that I learned while I was serving in the United States Marine Corps. Again, a little bit of history about it though. You know, I joined back in 2002, right after high school. I'm fresh, I'm 17 years old. I don't know what the heck I want to do with my life. I don't know what is it that I'm out to do. I don't want to go to college at that time. I don't want to get a job. And so, but I do know that there's something better inside of me that it was calling me. And for me, one of my buddies who was a year ahead of me at that time, you know, I saw him join the Marine Corps. I would see the Marines come into the high school with very sharp uniforms, very pressed, their medals around them. And so it just really caught my attention. And it was the Marine Corps specifically, a jarhead, that I wanted to serve. I wanted to be part of that culture. And so I decided at 16, I think I was 15 years old, 16 years old, that's what I was gonna do. As soon as I got out of high school, I decided I'm gonna join the Marine Corps. I wanna join the Marine Corps because that is something that I wanted to do. So that's, long story short, that is exactly what I did. I served from 2002 to 2007. I was stationed in North Carolina, and you know, I had some really, really good experience, also some really bad experiences as well. But at the end of the day, it's the values. It's the values that I got to take away from them. And a lot of them, they're not starting, they didn't kick in until later. A lot of them are kicking in right now that I'm in my 30s. Some of those values that I look back, I didn't understand the meaning because I'm 17, I'm 20 years old, I'm 22 years old at that time. Life for me is just about partying and going out, drinking and hanging out with people and, you know, hanging out with girls. That is just essentially that life that I thought I was meant to do, you know, while serving in the military. Little did I know, I learned a lot of values. Now that I'm older, I'm looking back at those and I'm just thinking like, wow, man, you know, I cannot believe that I didn't see that. But anyways, with that being said, let me tell you some of the values that I learned while I was serving in the military. Okay, so one of the values that I learned is that appearance matters. When you look at the Marine Corps, especially the Marine Corps, and I'm not trying to badmouth any other branch because I believe that any branch that you serve is going to give you some values. But for me specifically, my own experience while serving in the U.S. Marine Corps and being a jarhead, I learned that appearance matters. Our uniforms at all times had to be pressed from the way we cut our hair. And as you can tell, you know, I still kept the style of my hair, you know, very short hair. That is essentially the appearance that you need to show while you're serving in the military. So uniforms very pressed, the pants, the way you use your shoes, your uniforms, your boots, polishing your boots. It's appearance, and appearance for the Marine Corps is the top of the top priority when you're showing up yourself, especially when we're out there doing our little marching and doing our cadence. And also even when we go running, and we're doing our chants, we are out there, you know, just showing the best version of yourself, even while you're training. So appearance matters. So that's one of the values that I learned, and I still take it with me up until this day. And it's something that has stuck with me, and it will always stay with me. And that is something that I always like to portray to others, and then not encourage in a way that I like to compliment. You know, when somebody's looking sharp, I always like, you know what, that uniform looks very sharp. So it's something that always stands out to me because my brain is able to pick it up. So appearance matters is one of the biggest lessons that I get to take away from the Marine Corps. Another big value that I learned was you can't do everything on your own. Teamwork matters, and teamwork is a big part of serving in the military. From the way we used to train while we were serving in boot camp, you know, we were always taught that it was all a teamwork. And we always have a saying, at least from the Marine Corps side, there's no man left behind. But I believe that it's every branch in the military. That is just our culture here in the United States military, that there's gonna be no men left behind. So one of the things that I learned, and I remember some of the stories that I have in my head when we were in training, and also in Afghanistan as well, because I did serve, you know, the tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, but especially during while I was a training, I do remember a lot of the times, you know, some of the slower individuals that were there, not physically fitted, or some of the ones that struggled the most, we will always, you know, be punished for leaving that person behind. So at the beginning, obviously, you know, you're a civilian, you're not really accustomed to that, but your brain starts eventually picking it up. So before you're being reminded, you automatically react to the fact that you gotta go and pick up your buddy. You can't leave him behind. Not so much because you're gonna get punished if you don't participate in the teamwork. That is at the beginning, obviously, because they're implementing that on you very, very hard. But eventually it just becomes a habit. It's just part of who you are. It just became part of who I am. No man left behind, or woman left behind for that matter. So that is one of the big values, though. You can't do everything on your own, and counting the other person, you know, what they're thinking, you know, integrating their thoughts to the mission that you're out to do is super, super important. And it's one of the key things why I really enjoy participating in the United States military. The third one is confidence is king. Confidence is king because you're being decisive. Not all the times you're gonna have the confidence to do something, and that is courage, right? Courage means I am afraid of doing it, but I still do it anyway. So what that does, it just gives me confidence. It just gives me the confidence and the ability to decide what I need to do, what I need to go. Do I need to go to the left, or do I need to go to the right in order to make the best decision? So confidence is what builds you, is what drives you, not just in the military, but in life in general. But for me, confidence gave me the ability to make decisions on the fly, right? Because I was able to adjust. And again, back then, I didn't really see it as such. I didn't really understand what I was doing because, like, again, I was a 21, 22-year-old, I don't want to say immature, but just still learning what life was really all about. But now that I'm in my 30s, I do see the difference now from what I learned as far as having that confidence, from being decisive, being able to make those decisions on the spot. And today it gives me the ability, and I don't do this all the time. I'm not saying that I have mastered it, that I'm perfect, but now I know that I know. I'm present to the fact that when I'm put in a position where it's pressure time, I need to make the decision right away. I don't think about, let me think about tomorrow, especially when you are in a combat zone, because when you're in a combat zone, you got to make that decision. Otherwise it's life or death situation though. So the confidence and the ability to be decisive is king, is huge. And it's one of the disciplines, one of the values that you get to take away while serving in the military. So the fourth value that I learned while serving was appreciating your friends. There's nothing bigger than having your friends being appreciated. And that is something that today resonates with me a lot more, because one of the things that I learned now while serving in the military, but as I grew older and I started taking self-development courses, I understand that, I need to put myself aside, because it's really no longer about me. it's about the other person. And so I struggled with this at the beginning, by the way, because it just allowed, I lost so many friends throughout. But in the process, in return, I was able to gain so much more friends. And once I learned this concept, once it stuck to my head, it became even better. I started meeting more people. People started being more influenced, by what I would say to them or by the way I would listen to them. There's a video that I made and I talked about the 6 principles by Dale Carnegie. And it talks about, really when you talk to people, you listen with the intent to listen, and then you put yourself, in their position. So you speak in the other person's terms. So this is the ability to influence. So appreciating your friends in the Marine Corps, in the military, for me was huge, because up until this day, I still have buddies from back then, and I keep up with them in social media and all that stuff. I got like 1 or 2, maybe a handful of friends that I still get to talk to them on the phone every now and then, and it's just big, because even the friends that I now have that I was not part of serving with them, just because of the fact that they served in the military, there are common values. They are very invisible, but they're present in the presence of us having that relationship. So therefore, we understand each other. We have those common values, those common interests that we learn from the military, and it just gives us the ability to connect better, to add value to each other even more. And so I remember a couple stories actually. When we deployed to Afghanistan, and we actually went on a ship. It was a huge ship. We call them the carrier, and we took off out of Virginia, and we left it for about 7 months. We deployed to Afghanistan, and just the brotherhood that we had in there was huge. I mean, there was fights. We had fights going on all the time. I actually got in a fight with a good friend of mine who ended up, at the end of the day, we ended up, scrubbing it off. But it was just the fact that we were just incubated. We were just in the middle of the ocean, and we really had nothing else to do other than where we were heading for a mission, and also, doing part of our jobs. And so the way we interacted was it was one of its kind, and it's something that I haven't done ever since then, because again, I'm talking about 10, 12 years ago when I had this experience. But with that said, you will always find yourself, playing video games, at the end of the night when the day was over, we would call it, we're going to hit the rack. The rack is your bed, where you're going to lay down. And then you're literally are 1, 2, 3 beds on top of each other. So you're literally, in the space from where you are, it's probably about this much. So I'm sleeping here, the other person above me is right here. So that tells you how close together we were to each other, and how much we bonded. So we would tell stories. These are military stories that we would tell each other, obviously, from everybody back home. We would share a little bit about, what the other person might be doing and whatnot. But those are just stories that you only get to experience while you're serving the military. But again, it created that bond. It created that relationship, that brotherhood. And when we got back to the States, you had that common value with that individual, even though there were other Marines on base, right? If they were not deployed, they're still your brothers. But with the brother that you just came back with from deployment with, you had those common values, you had those common interests, and you bonded even more because you just lived together with this person for 6, 7 months. And so it was very, very huge for me to appreciate that and to experience that, because it just gave me the ability, and those memories still live up to this day with me. And it just, when I'm reminded and I'm present with another relationship that reminds me of a certain scenario while I was serving, it is huge. It is big for me. Appreciating your friends, it just gives you the ability, not just in the military, but it's just the value of learning how to appreciate the people that you're surrounded by. It just gives you that sense of purpose, that ability that you get to take away from the Marine Corps. Nobody can take that away from you anymore, because now it's present in your head. It lives in you. It's part of you. You know how to appreciate your friends. Now you're speaking in your own terms. Now you're having an influence, so you have a better impact in them. And so appreciating your friends is a huge, huge value that I got to take away from serving, again, in the military. Okay, and the last value that I want to share with you all that I take away from the Marine Corps is you'll always have something to give. So understand that when for me personally, while I was serving, I was not present to that. It was not up until later that I learned, that I knew, but I didn't know, that I learned that there's something bigger than me. There's something that was calling me. It's just like the example that I was giving when I first joined at the beginning. There was a calling. I wanted to be a Marine Corps, and I decided at 15 years old that I wanted to be a Marine, and that's what I accomplished. But there's always something more to give in the Marine Corps, because again, as I was giving the example of no man left behind, you do it courageously, you do it selfishly, because it's no longer about you, it's about the other individual who is being left behind. And so therefore you taking a step back in order to pull them back, to drag this person out of the way so that you can be there for that person. So always understand that there's going to be something bigger in life that is bigger than yourself. And for me, the ability to have served, it just gives me that ability to reason and to think that I have something better than myself, that there's something bigger out there that I can give. And I think that for me personally, that made a huge impact. The fact that I was serving in the military, because it just gives me that ability to grasp on that information much better, understand it, comprehend it a lot better than I actually, did while I was serving. Out of all cases, right? All scenarios, go figure. But now today, I look back on that, and so I understand that there was something better that I was serving. There was a purpose. And so now I get to see that. So understand that you'll always have something bigger than, to give than yourself. And so with that, the ability to have the discipline, right? Because those are other values that you get to take away from the military. The discipline, the ability to obey orders, right? The ability to give the order as well. It just keeps you very, very disciplined. Some of the values that we as Marines carry is honor, courage, commitment. Honor, you honor the branch that you're serving for. You honor your family. You honor your name. The courage, again, it's the ability to make the decision even when you don't want to do it, even when you're afraid to do it. I'm scared, but I still do it anyway. I have the courage to do it. Commitment. I'm committed to this relationship. I'm committed to serving my country. I'm committed to my team. I'm committed. It's just commitment. It's the ability to think for yourself and others that you have that big commitment. So those are some of the values that I got to take away from serving in the military, specifically the United States Marine Corps. Now the question becomes, should anybody serve in the United States military? Should you serve? Do you recommend serving in the military? Well, that's really your own decision. Now, speaking for me personally, speaking from someone like myself at 15 years old, that I had made the commitment and I knew that I didn't want to go to school. I didn't want to have I didn't have any other choices. At least I thought at that time. And it was very hard for me. And, because at that time I was, basically I had to work, right? I had to make my own money. I had to pay for my own rent at 15 years old, 14 years old. So for me, serving in the military, specifically the Marine Corps, but it could be any branch, but for me specifically the Marine Corps, it gave me a lot of values. So someone that is experiencing that at that specific stage, or someone that has a child that's going through that at that specific stage, it definitely gives the ability to that person to learn values, interact with others, interact with different cultures, different background ethnicities, because that is another huge thing for me, though, that for me, dealing with other backgrounds, dealing with other ethnicities, it just gives me the ability. I don't see color. I'm blindsided. I only see one race and one race only, and that is the human race. That is something that I will always carry with me. And so it just gives me, I'm so proud to even say that, because, for me, that I don't see a barrier. Everybody's the same. And so I learned that while I was in the Marine Corps. Those are the values that I got to learn, that I got to take away from me. And so for someone who really does not know what life is, should be dictated, is out to be dictated, it makes sense to join the military for the sake of learning those values. You got the individuals who are hardcore timers, 20 years, 20 plus years, that makes perfect sense. I believe that it will give you those values, that sense of purpose. And so I definitely recommend it, if you are in that position. I'm even telling my son, if that's something that he wants to do, I don't limit that. I know some parents like to limit, and say, no, never the military. I don't want my kid to be there involved. I don't want him to be part of that. So, those are different values that they carry. For me, my values is what I learn, what I'm teaching my kids. And so if that is something that they want to do, they're more than welcome to do it. Obviously, it's what you take away from it. And so with that said, I do believe that there is a lot that you can learn as far as value goes from the military, from the United States Marine Corps, as a matter of fact, from being a jarhead. So I really love it. I would not change anything. I will go back and keep it the same it was, because it just put me today in this position where I'm in today, and I'm grateful for that. So with that being said, I hope that this video makes sense for you in some way, that you learn some of the values, that you get to take away some of the values that I learned. And if you're thinking about joining, that is something that you have to consider with your recruiter, with family members. If you got kids that are thinking of joining, there's a lot of values that you can learn from them. It doesn't mean that you cannot learn them anywhere else, but it just gives you that structure. It just gives you that discipline, the way that you carry yourself as a United States military. And so with that being said, thank you so much for allowing me to watch it. Please, if you haven't watched any of the other videos that I have made, please go ahead and check them out. There's a ton of valuable information that I do my best every single time that I make these videos, just to portray some value and give it back and pay it back to the community. With that being said, all of the social media, please don't forget to follow. My accounts are always open to you, and so feel free to let us know. And please don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can help us with the algorithm and reach out more people who might be in need of this information that I just provided to you. With that being said, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.